Hello and welcome to episode number 8 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast presented by Fox, PHL, The Gambler, and iHeartRadio. My name is Jason Fanelli. I am the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox Sports, The Gambler, and we have a packed show for you this evening. We got an interview with a Call of Duty player getting ready for the playoffs. We have some financial reports to talk about, a state of play from PlayStation with some new stuff. A lot of things coming out this week that might be worth your time, including we get a little fast, a little furious, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then maybe I'm going to end this show with another review, the second ever review on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast. Really big show. I'm very excited to get started, so let's not waste any more time and get into the 6 in 60 seconds. The Philadelphia Fusion swept both the Dallas Fuel and Los Angeles Valiant over the weekend, clinching the third seed in the Countdown Cup bracket beginning tomorrow, the Fusion playing at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Elsewhere, the NBA 2K League enters its final week of the regular season, the 76ers Gaming Club currently on the outside looking in with 2 games to play. Cloud9 loses both of their League of Legends matches last weekend, dropping to 2-6 for the second half of the season. Elsewhere, Nintendo posts 400% profits for the first quarter of 2020, including 22 million copies of Animal Crossing sold since June 30 of 2020. Meanwhile, Street Fighter V Season 5 was revealed with 4 new characters coming: Dan, Rose, Oro from Street Fighter 3, and guest character Akira from Rival Schools. Finally, Arcade 1-Up is opening pre-orders on Miss Pac-Man, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and Marvel vs. Capcom machines, with Marvel vs. Capcom being a Best Buy exclusive. This was your 6 in 60 seconds. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving right along here on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast presented by Fox, PHL, The Gambler. I have with me right now one of the hottest members of the Call of Duty League, if you ask me. Plays for the New York Subliners. His name is Makenzie Kelly, but his friends know him as Mack. Mack, how are you today, sir?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
Good, good. Glad to hear from you, and I hope you're looking forward to watching you play in the playoffs starting August 19th. But before the season ended, the Subliners really started their season on a slow foot, and then you came in, and from when you started to the end of the season, they placed top 4 in 4 of the 7 home series, including the win of your own home series. What do you think you brought to the team that really improved their play so quickly?
I think I just brought a much faster pace, and I feel like in this game specifically, playing at a faster pace and playing correct is very good, and I think just me speeding up how we are in the map just really helped us.
Okay, so you joined the team on March the 8th, but you didn't actually debut until April 26th in the league. So how did you mesh with your teammates in that time? What did you do to build rapport and build chemistry?
We were just going really hard in practice and, just kind of vibing, talking, having fun, and not really taking the first few weeks that serious. Just kind of focusing on, acclimating in like a new voice and a new player. So, yeah, we kind of just, the few weeks that we had before that tournament, we're just focused on building up the chem and getting stuff down.
Do you think keeping it light and free in those few weeks, as opposed to really hunkering down and being serious, helped you build more of a friendship-style chemistry, which then helped you in the tournament itself?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Now, of course, after the first few weeks, practice began to start getting much more intense. But yeah, those first few weeks of more of just building a friendship and chemistry between each other definitely helped me.
Sure, there's something to be said about when you first bring a player on, taking a couple weeks to make them feel comfortable before really hunkering down and getting serious. So that makes sense to me. That's really cool. So you finally did win a home series, the New York home series, in fact, about a month ago, after so many top 4 finishes the previous 3 times. How did the mood around the team change after finally getting that monkey off their back?
I think it was just a huge surge in confidence. At all these tournaments, we've always just knew that we were just throwing games away. We showed we could compete with top teams, and we would just be in a favorable situation and just kind of just choke. So getting that W, it definitely just boosted our confidence. It's okay, we're going to the big tournament, and we can win. We can do this shit. We got it. It was just a big boost in confidence.
Just had to get out of your own way, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. So you came out strong in your last home series of the year, London series. You beat the Gorillas 3-0. But then, unfortunately, you didn't win another map for the rest of the weekend. Was there a little bit of hangover there? What do you think went wrong, and what do you plan to change for the playoffs?
Honestly, I think the whole team, we pretty much chalked it up to an off tournament.
Sure.
We all came into the tournament. We wanted to win, of course, and I don't know, it was just kind of like an off tournament. We kind of came out flat, and it was very uncharacteristic. We were just playing the game differently, and our communication and teamwork wasn't there, as opposed to the New York home series where our teamwork was amazing. It was just a complete 180.
So the regular season ended for you with that London series, despite there being another series left to go. You basically had to stay home and watch the last week of the season. Were you fine with that extra week off before the playoffs begin, or would you have rather have played in that Toronto series too?
Me personally, I would rather have played in that series just because I would much rather get more tournament reps closer towards the big tournament, but I don't feel like it's going to have that big of an effect on us.
It didn't really affect your standings, correct? You were always going to be in that first winner's side, the 5 through 8. You couldn't really move out of that, could you?
Yeah, we were pretty much secured for that position.
Well, that's good, because I talked with another team, and they said that playing in that last series would allow them to maybe move a little bit up. It didn't happen. It ended up not happening. So I'm glad it didn't really affect you that you couldn't play. Speaking of the playoff structure, how do you feel about the way they devised these playoffs, considering COVID and everything else, throwing a wrench into the plans for this year? And if there was any changes you could make, what would you change and why?
I definitely think the old format that they've been doing for years is definitely better, and I think everyone knows that. But obviously, we just kind of work with what we got. I definitely think the 2 different weekends is kind of interesting because there's that factor of if a team comes out the first weekend and they play really well, and then they can just show up next weekend and not be on that same wave. People are going to tweet after. I can see the tweets now oh, if we would have played the whole tournament that weekend, we would have won, and stuff like that. I can see the tweets already, and I definitely think it's going to be kind of weird. You might just see a team just absolutely fry first weekend and then come out flat next weekend, and it's going to be very interesting for sure.
Momentum will absolutely be a factor in being able to carry it over that extra week. That's an interesting thought. I hadn't considered that until you just mentioned it, but yeah, that could really not play in a team's favor.
100%.
So you would keep it one full weekend? You wouldn't put that break in the action?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the 5-day tournament champs has been really entertaining to watch and really good from a viewership standpoint.
Sure. And you mentioned the previous playoff structure. For the listeners who might not be familiar with Call of Duty League until this year, what did the CDL? No. CWL,
Yeah,
that's it. Sorry, it's Call of Duty World League. What was their structure then as opposed to now?
I'm pretty sure. It's my first year, so I don't got all the rules ingrained into my brain. But I believe it was a 5-day tournament. It started on Thursday or so, and they would do the group play matches and all that stuff, and then bracket play would begin on Friday or Saturday. And I just think that like watching like that like week of COD is just like really entertaining. Like when I watched like one of my first champs events when I was just a spectator, it was just really entertaining to just watch just so much Call of Duty, and then eventually get to where the matches are just really important and towards the end of the bracket.
That's cool. Well, maybe maybe that was their plan. I feel like that might have been their plan this year, but then with COVID and them adding the 4 teams, they had to add the extra weekend. So maybe next year they'll go back to that. But yeah, that makes sense to me. So a couple more questions for you. Nothing. Then we'll get you on out of here. I know you got to scrim in a couple of minutes. So first off, there was some controversy with a couple of teams. One being basically losing a map even though a player disconnected. It was Seattle, I believe it was. Have your team experienced anything like that this year? And if you had, how do you think your team would react to a controversial decision like that?
So thankfully we haven't been like heavily impacted by anything like that. I know for some teams, like the servers that are available to them are, there's some pretty bad ones. I think like the worst we've ever gotten was like we're all on like 80 ping, occasional skips, but like people have been like freezing on other servers. Like it's kind of absurd. And I would hope that if that was happening to us, that we would be vocal about it and do what Sam is doing or Octane, where he just kind of taking the fines and trying to create a change. I know that the league, some of it's out of their control and they're doing they're trying to do their best.
Sure.
And yeah, I would really hope that if it was affecting us, we'd be vocal and try to push for a change.
Cool. Makes sense. So, two more questions for you. The first one is, do you play any games outside of Call of Duty, or is Call of Duty basically the only reason you pick up a controller now?
I'd say it's like 90% Call of Duty and then like 10% other games. Like occasionally I'll hop on like 2K or Madden for like just a friendly 1v1 just for fun. But yeah, mainly just Call of Duty.
Yeah, I've always been curious what the esports players play outside of the esports that they're good at. Because, like, for example, when Sinatra left the Overwatch League for Valorant, I thought to myself, he had time to play Valorant? So to hear that you jump into Madden or 2K once in a while is pretty cool, at least to break up the monotony, right? So then finally, my last question to you is regarding these playoffs, which start on the 19th. What do the New York Subliners need to do to make a big run and get to that finals?
What do we have to do? We have to clutch up in our search and destroy. We have to, just some rounds, we just, in our 3v3s, like last minute of the round type stuff, like we just have to just clutch up, ice up, and win some search and destroys against top teams, and I think we can make a really far run. I
would agree with that. S&D seems to be the trouble spot for a lot of teams, so I expect a lot of high-level S&D play come playoff time. Mack, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time with me. Go Scrim, and good luck to you when the playoffs start August 19th. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, folks, there he is. That is Mack of the New York Subliners of the Call of Duty League. Call of Duty League's playoffs begin Wednesday, August 19th at 3 p.m. The New York Subliners, specifically, Thursday, August 20th at 4:30 p.m. You can see Mack and his team try to win that prestigious Call of Duty League playoffs, be the first team ever to win the Call of Duty League championship, and all of the sweet rewards that come with that. We were speaking about the previous format, the Call of Duty World League, during our interview, and we weren't exactly sure how those playoffs worked, but he was right. There were 10 teams, and they played the entire tournament in one weekend, July 19th to July 21st of 2019, at the Miami Beach Convention Center down in Florida. So he was correct. They were able to get that entire tournament in one weekend. So breaking this tournament up in two is a little different, but what are you going to do? I mean, that's part of the pandemic world that we live in. Also, if you're interested in the Call of Duty League, if you've been following along with me or with the league this year, CallOfDutyLeague.com has a perfect bracket going on right now where you can build a bracket based on the playoffs, the way they're situated right now. You can set which team is going to win and what they're going to win by, 3-1, 3-0, or 3-2. If you get a perfect bracket, not only do you pick every winner, but you also get every score correct. You are $100,000 richer. That's not something to shake a stick at. Of course, it's virtually impossible, not going to lie, but hey, it's fun to build brackets, and we couldn't do March Madness this year, so build a couple Call of Duty League brackets, try and fill that void. Also, if you have the best bracket in the entire contest, the most points on the leaderboard, you still get 10 grand. Not something to shake a stick at either, so definitely something to look into if you're following Call of Duty League, or if you just want to put in a bracket to try and win some money. You do you, and we'll see what happens when those playoffs start on August the 19th. But for now, we've got some games to play this week. 3 games coming at you, so take out your glasses and have a taste of what's on tap. First up this week is Fast and Furious Crossroads, a hybrid racing and action role-playing game based on the Fast and Furious film franchise, developed by Slightly Mad Studios and published by Bandai Namco. The game is set across global locations and features characters all throughout the Fast and Furious film franchise, so if Fast and Furious is for you, this may be a game worth looking into. Elsewhere, for the Battle Royale crowd, Ubisoft released a brand new Battle Royale called Hyperscape on PC on July the 12th. The game will release on all consoles, PS4, Xbox One, and the Windows full release out of beta. Beta was July 12th. The full release on August 11th, which is this coming Tuesday. Battle Royale at its best. Another one challenging Fortnite, although this one is first person, so more like Call of Duty's Modern Warfare Warzone. 99 players dropped onto this map, with players seeking to eliminate the competition. Also, the Total War franchise gets a brand new game in Total War Saga Troy, which will be a simulation game not unlike the other games in the series, where you're controlling full armies of Trojan warriors heading into battle against other major armies in full-scale warfare. Finally, I know I said 3, but here's a bonus game. Horizon Zero Dawn is ported to the PC this week, so if you didn't play that on PS4, make sure you play it now. That is what's on tap. All right, moving right along here on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast. If there's a game that I just mentioned that's on tap for you, let me know on Twitter at BigManFanelli. Hey, let me know anything. If I'm talking about something here and you want to chime in, let me know there. Maybe I'll read a tweet on air next week. Or any time, whether it be on the podcast or when I'm with Sean Brace every Thursday around the 4 o'clock hour on his show, The Daily Ticket, live on Philadelphia airwaves. Any comments you have, any questions, you want to tell me I'm a dum-dum, you go right ahead. Nothing is off the table. Everything is acceptable. I will gladly take any comments or questions that you have. But moving on now to the topic of the evening, that being, of two topics I'm going to talk about in this second segment, considering that I had an interview in the first segment with Mack. I appreciate him coming on with us. New York Subliners. Looking forward to see what they can do in those Call of Duty playoffs. But I want to talk about Nintendo. Now, I've been talking about Nintendo for a little while now. I mean, if we're going to be completely honest, I've been talking about Nintendo my entire life. But recently, I've been giving them a bunch of crap because they don't want to tell us what games are coming out for the remainder of the year. And it's starting to get frustrating as a fan of their games that we don't know what we have to play between now and December 31st. Well, on the one hand, they did sort of answer my calls for new games with the announcement of Pikmin 3 Deluxe, a port of the Wii U game Pikmin 3 coming to the Switch in late October, which then was followed by immediately removing it from the digital Wii U shop for all those people that are still playing Wii U, which is kind of crappy, but when it's coming to a new console, I kind of understand it. I don't like it, but I get why they did it. So, we got a game. That's nice. I guess, sure, why not? We got a game. But more importantly, earlier today, on Thursday, August 6th, when I am recording this segment, they reported their first quarter fiscal year 2020 financial report. That is from April 1st to June the 30th of this year. They gave a full report on everything from how their income, their profits, how many units they sold, so on and so forth. And this report reads like one of the most successful video game financial reports you will ever hear. It does not get any higher than this for any video game company out there today. Let's just start with their net sales. 358.1 billion Japanese yen. That is a 108% increase from the year prior. Their operating profit, 144.7 billion Japanese yen. That is a 427% increase over last year. It's their best first quarter since year 2008 at the height of the Wii and Nintendo DS era. Absolutely absurd numbers coming from Nintendo. Let's talk a little bit about specifics here, shall we? The Nintendo Switch, as of June 30th, 2020, has sold 61 million units. It released March 3rd, 2017. As of June 30th, 2020, 61 million consoles. Has now sold as many consoles as the NES already. The NES in its lifetime was 61.91 million. The Switch is already there in 3 years and a couple of months. That's absurd. 5.68 million of those units were during the April to July quarter. Nearly 6 million Switches between April and June. The best first quarter for Switch in its 3 years, but more impressively, the higher than any first quarter than the Wii ever had. And we all remember the Wii craze of 2006 and 2007. To beat that is super impressive. Moving on now to their software capabilities. Let's talk about how many units of software the Switch has moved since it launched on March the 3rd. It has moved 406 million different units of software. 406 million games. Individual games, individual sales to individual people as of June 30th, 2020. That is higher than the 3DS sold in its lifetime, even though the 3DS sold more hardware units at this point in the Switch's life. The Switch has sold less consoles than the 3DS did, but it's already moved nearly 20 million more units of software sales. These are insane numbers. A couple of the games that really performed in this first quarter. First and foremost, we have to talk about Animal Crossing New Horizons. If you're not playing Animal Crossing, you're missing out. 20 million units sold to consumers, 22.4 shipped since March the 20th when it released. It has already sold its predecessor, 2013's New Leaf, outsold, I should say, New Leaf, which had 12.55 million in its lifetime. Best-selling game in the series, already the second best-selling game on the Switch. Smash Bros. Is third. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is first at 28 million sold. Other top performers, Ring Fit Adventure, a exercise game using a resistance ring with the Switch Joy-Cons inside, sold 4 million units to date. That came out last October with a nice little push in June specifically. Xenoblade Chronicles and Clubhouse games, two other games that came out in the second quarter, each sold over 1 million units. In fact, 10 games total have sold over 7 million units on the Switch so far. 9 of them already 10 million over. We talked about Mario Kart, we talked about Animal Crossing, and we talked about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is at 18 million. Pokemon Sword and Shield are at 18.22 million. Super Mario Odyssey at 18.06 million. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee at 12.2 million. Super Mario Party at 10.94 million. And Splatoon 2 at 10.71. This console is going crazy right now. It is impossible to understate how well Nintendo is doing right now, which kind of flies in the face of me saying we don't know what games we're playing for the rest of the year. Sure, they could ride Animal Crossing's coattails if they wanted to, and Pikmin 3 is a nice announcement, but with financials like this, I might as well just sit in the corner and shut the hell up. They're killing it. They're absolutely crushing it. And, obviously, there's an obvious reason why this is happening. It's one of those words that's becoming like Voldemort, it that shall not be named. Every time you say its name, people cringe or cower. They don't want to hear it, and I get that. But that's the reason for it. People are stuck inside their houses. They have nothing to do. They buy a Switch. They play Animal Crossing. They play Super Smash Bros. They play Mario Kart. They play Nintendo games. You're probably thinking, why aren't Xbox and PlayStation going gangbusters like this? I don't have their financials in front of me. They may be selling consoles well. I will say this, though. Nintendo has been around far longer than both of them, and their characters are more recognizable to people who may have either played games as kids and then stopped playing for a while, or were the parents of kids who played video games back then and stopped for a while. And now they need something to do. They pick up a Switch because it's portable, and Mario's there, and they recognize Mario. They recognize The Legend of Zelda. They recognize Mario Kart. They recognize these things. So Nintendo's skyrocketing first quarter of 2020 does make sense. Can they keep that going? Who knows? They need games to put on the console, as I keep saying. But I don't think they're going to have a good, as good a second quarter based on the back of Paper Mario, the Origami King. It's just not going to compare. If Animal Crossing continues its upward ascent and eclipses Mario Kart at the top of the ladder, then maybe they'll have another quarter like this. But we need more games to play. We need to know what they are if they're going to maintain the success for the entirety of 2020. The pandemic does help. Obviously, the fact that Animal Crossing is so good and so universally accessible is good. A brand new player who's never played a video game before is just as likely to enjoy Animal Crossing as someone who has been playing since he was out of the womb. I've been playing games since I was 3. I love Animal Crossing. My wife doesn't really play video games all that often. The occasional game of Mario Kart, the occasional game of OG Sonic the Hedgehog or Super Mario Brothers. She's playing Animal Crossing every night, has her own little house, setting herself up. She's really digging it. My daughter likes to play The Island, as she calls it. My younger daughter is now watching Animal Crossing and cheering every time I catch a bug. She goes, ugh! Every time I catch a fish, ugh! It's hysterical. And I'm going to try and get it on video one of these days when I think about it. But the game is just super accessible to everyone, and everyone's locked inside with nothing to do. So the fact that Animal Crossing is selling gangbusters makes sense. The fact that Nintendo is killing it makes sense. Do I hope it continues? Yes, but it's not going to do that until we know what we're going to be playing on the Switch in the near future. Right now, they have 2 games dated for the rest of the year. One is downloadable content, and the other is Pikmin 3, which we talked about earlier. That's it. We're going to need more than that. And soon, as my blog said on foxphlgambler.com. Until then, we'll see what happens. But, man, Nintendo, it is a good time to be you. I wish I had bought some stock. But right when this pandemic started, even if it was $100 a share, I'd probably be doing great right now. But that is a company to keep an eye on if you're a financial guy. I can only imagine they're going to keep going higher. If they announce some gangbuster games for the holiday season, there's no telling what the Switch could do. So, props to you, Nintendo. Release some damn games, but props to you. My second topic this evening, PlayStation. Moving to one of Nintendo's big competitors, PlayStation released a State of Play video. Their response to the Nintendo Directs or the pre-recorded video presentations of upcoming games and information on stuff coming in the future. They did come out and say that there wasn't going to be any price information or console information about the PlayStation 5, which is still a fly in my ointment, still sticks in my craw, but what are you going to do? But they did announce over a dozen different things in this 40-minute presentation. A lot of cool things to talk about. Most notably, I would say, was what they started with, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, having multiple playable characters. They showed off 4, Crash, Coco, Neo Cortex, the bad guy, and Dingo Dial, who is a side bad guy and is an absolute nut. That's really cool. Then they also showed off this new inverted mode, which is kind of like playing all the levels in Mirror, but also they each have their own distinct style. Like one level will be like an old-timey movie where it's sort of black and white but not, and the overexposed look of it kind of emulates that style of 1930s, 1940s cartoon. There are levels that are black and white, and every time you do a spin attack, you spin color all over the place. Really, really cool stuff from this Crash demo. It was about 8 minutes long, about 8 minutes of gameplay for that game coming out in October. It's starting to shoot up my ranks as one of my most anticipated games of the year, just because I spent so much time on Crash Bandicoots 2 and 3 specifically. 1 I kind of missed. 2 and 3 specifically, so much time, so many summers, so many summer days and nights playing through those games. I think I 100%ed Crash 2 back in the day. And then their re-releases recently in 2017 were just as good. So I'm hoping that 4 really knocks it out of the park here. Other announcements were Hitman. If you're a Hitman fan, number 3 will be giving PSVR virtual reality support in January, which will then add the same VR support to the previous 2 installments. So all 3 of this new trilogy of Hitman will be playable in VR, which is pretty crazy. We got some new gameplay into a game that is very popular in the Fanelli household thanks to its theme song, and that is Bugsnax. That's right, Bugsnax. If you've never heard of this game before, it's made by a developer in Chicago named Young Horses, who also created Octodad, Dadliest Catch in 2014, one of the silliest games you'll ever play. The video game equivalent of a slapstick comedy, if you ask me. Bugsnax is a game where you play as this animal, or it kind of looks like a Sesame Street puppet or a Muppet. It's called a Grumpus, and it goes to this island called Snacks. I believe I may look it up right here right now. I should know it. It's all in the lyrics of the song that you're probably listening to right now. Snacktooth Island, where all of these little creatures are half like creepy crawly critter bug and half snack. Like there's a strawberry that crawls around. There's a full sandwich that looks like a centipede. All these weird bug snacks, and you are solving the mysteries of this island by observing and hunting and capturing bug snacks in these little traps, and you take them back to this settlement called Snacksburg with all the other Grumpuses. It sounds weird. As I'm explaining this, it's dawning on me how strange this game sounds. But it looks very charming. It looks very endearing. My 4-year-old daughter is all in on the theme song, which again, you're probably hearing right now. And Octodad is a ton of fun. It's unique, it's silly, it's lighthearted, and it's exactly the kind of game you want to be playing in this current time, as is another one, which we'll get to at the end of the podcast. Spoiler. Bugsnax is definitely one that's on my radar. A, because it looks absolutely silly, and B, Young Horses impressed me with Octodad, and I hope they do it again. I'm looking for them to do it again. We also got a announcement of a remake of one of the first major indie hits before indie gaming's boom. This was a game that came out back in 2007, 2008. A platformer that used time for rewinding time and fast forwarding time as a mechanic called Braid. One of the most unique games I have ever played, and definitely one I'm looking forward to playing again. The ending of this game, I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously. You can play this right now before the Anniversary Edition comes out. The ending of this game is one of the most well-written experiences, well-developed, well-paced, well-set, well-written experiences in a game I've ever played. ever. It's amazing. It looks like such a simple Mario-style platformer, but man, does this ending really hit you in the mouth out of nowhere. It's a super surprise. I really, really, really like it. We also got a brand new game called Hood, Outlaws and Legends, which is a 4-on-4 multiplayer heist game where 2 teams of 4 try to steal treasures from the other team, and Hood is Robin Hood. It's a reimagining of the Robin Hood legend. Control, one of the best games of last year, is getting a new expansion called AWE. I don't want to say much more than that. That's not something I want to be anywhere near spoiling. I don't even want to allude to it because A, Control is so good, and B, where this DLC is going is even better. So make sure you look into that. If you didn't play Control, play it, and then after you play it, you'll be interested in the DLC. I guarantee that. A couple other games, a couple from China called One Genshin Impact, which looks like it's going for Breath of the Wild style gameplay, was pretty cool. Aeon Must Die and Anno Mutationem, I think I'm saying that right, Mutationem, was a cyberpunk style game. Looked pretty cool. Star Wars VR game, Vader Immortal, with some VR lightsaber dueling, impressed me. Little indie platformer called The Pedestrian, where you play as one of the character. You play as a character that looks like one of the drawings on a bathroom sign. The little stick man with the circle head and the body, or a female with a circle head and the dress. And they're running in between signs that transport them further into the world, and you have to solve puzzles and platform as that. That looked very, very interesting. Temtem, which is a Pokemon competitor, made a big splash when it was on Kickstarter. It's out now on PC. It's coming to PlayStation 5 in 2021 and Xbox Series X, as we found out after the presentation. And then finally, we saw our first gameplay of Godfall, which was the first PlayStation 5 game ever revealed. Was revealed back in December at the Game Awards 2019. It showed off 8 or 10 minutes or so of its melee-based combat, so swords, hammers, that style of combat. Looked very, very cool. I don't know if it'll be a system seller, but definitely was a good start for what the PlayStation 5 can do. So all in all, the State of Play had some good stuff going for it. Crash 4 at the very beginning was probably the peak of it for me. Getting a look at Bugsnax gameplay is good too. I'm telling you, Bugsnax. And then Godfall to round it out was solid. It was safe. Don't get me wrong. It was very, very safe. It was almost like, hey, we know PlayStation 5's coming out, but there's still stuff on PS4 that you can play. Don't forget about PS4. Had that air to it as well. But definitely worth watching. Nice 40-minute presentation of some cool games. Maybe something you can look forward to between now and the end of the year, or at least when the PlayStation 5 comes out. And yeah, so I'm interested in PlayStation's near future. I would like a price point and a release date, please. I don't know what you're waiting for. Are you just afraid that you're not going to be able to ship as many as you want to, so you're waiting until the last possible second? Fine, but if you could announce that stuff so my wallet can be ready for it, I would appreciate it. I don't want to wait any longer than I have to. This goes for you too, Microsoft. Please announce the price of your consoles so I can know what I have to pay. Anyway, enough of that. Now that we have talked about Nintendo and PlayStation, got that off my chest, it is time to move on for the second ever review on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast. It is time for the Hot Off the Grill segment. Cue the music. Yes, here we are. It is time for Hot Off the Grill, the Cheesesteaks and Controllers segment where we review a recent released game. giving it pros and cons, explaining what makes it good, what makes it bad, and giving it a final score. This is the second time that we are doing a full-on review. The first one was Carrion from episode number 6. That was a good game made by Phobia Game Company and Devolver Digital, and this one is another Devolver Digital game, but this time made by a development team called Mediatonic in London, and the name of the game is Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Now, for those who are unaware, Fall Guys is essentially Wipeout, the ABC show, or Most Extreme Elimination Challenge / Takeshi's Castle for the older listeners among you. Essentially that in video game form. Each match, each round, each game that you play starts with up to 60 fellow players. 60 fellow players, so you and 59 others. And eventually, through the events that you play, you whittle down to the last person standing. The last person standing earns a crown, which can then be turned in for certain perks or costumes or colors in the online store, in the in-game store, I should say. And there's also kudos to be earned as you play each match. So no matter how far you get, you'll earn some kudos, which can also be used to obtain some of the in-game perks. The gameplay loop is very simple. You start a game, you play until you're eliminated, you get your earnings, and off you go again. But despite that simplicity, the game is, and this is the first major pro, just goofy, silly fun. It's so light. It's so fun. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. It's a perfect game to just sit, grab a controller, and laugh for a while. You laugh when you lose. You laugh when you win. You laugh at everything in between. It's never a game that elicits any anger. It's never a game that elicits any frustration. It keeps everything as stress-free as possible, except for like the mini stresses when you're in the events themselves, like if you're running towards the finish line and there's other people around you and you want to make sure you get there first, little things like that. But it's never overwhelming. It never makes you feel like the game is against you. It really is just goofy, silly fun that makes it very easy to get into right from the jump. I also would like to point out that starting at 60 players and going to 1 is very smart, as the way these levels are built out, I feel like anything more than 60 would be overcrowded, and anything less than 60 would be too easy for the players involved. So that 60 is a pretty good sweet spot. Even in matches where you don't get the full 60 players, you get maybe 45 or 50. Those feel fine, but anything less than that, I feel like would be too empty and a little too easy to progress in the game. Speaking of those events, the variety of the events is another major perk of this game. Most of them are free-for-alls. So you have one called Seesaw, where it's an obstacle course filled with seesaws, and if too many of the other players are on the seesaw at one time, it'll tip over. If you fall off, you have to go back to a checkpoint. And then if you're not one of the first 45 or 36 or whatever round you're in, people to finish, you're eliminated. That's where the danger is of this game. So you have to run through the seesaws to make sure that you don't get knocked off and lose. There's also the Whirligig, which is another obstacle course style game, but instead of seesaws, you're on these spinning circles, and then there are areas with propellers that can hit you off of any platforms that you're walking past, little things like that. It really is a lot of different games to play, to the point where it never really feels monotonous. It never really feels repetitive. It never really feels like you're playing the same things over and over and over again. Even when you are, if you are unlucky enough to get the same couple of events every game, it still doesn't feel like it's monotonous because of how fast they go in the course of a full 5 or 6 rounds of competition. So it paces itself very well, and it feels very natural. It feels very good. It never feels like it's frustrating. It never feels like it's even or monotonous or tedious. I will say, though, one of the big cons is there are games that are free-for-alls, and then there are game events that are team-based. Some of these are fine. I particularly like the one where there's 7 giant balls in an arena. The arena is split into 3 teams, each with a clearly defined boundary line. If a ball is whatever side of the line the ball is on, that team has the point. Whoever has the most points at the end of was it 3 minutes, I think, maybe 2 minutes, progresses, and the team with the least amount of points gets eliminated. Those are cool. But then there are a format of team games involving tails, where some characters have tails, others do not, and the objective is to grab the tails from the other team, or from the other people who don't have tails. Those, to me, are the only times where the game really drags. They are not that fun. They're not that engaging. They're going for a Mario Kart battle mode style thing, but instead of popping balloons, you're grabbing tails off of people's backs. And it just doesn't work as well for me. Not that I don't like to play them, but I feel like those are the ones where after a little while you're just like, all right, let's stop the clock. Let's move on to the next game. If I lost, let me go get into another one. That kind of thing. So it's not a game killer by any means, but it's also not it's not the best when one of those pops up. You have one of those, oh man, moments. Not great. Not what you want from a game that's supposed to be keeping interest from beginning to end. Which actually brings me to another con, probably the second and biggest. This is the biggest con of the two cons that I have on my list here, and that is connectivity issues. There is nothing more frustrating than when you are in a team match like that and you lose it, and then you can't connect to another match, another game for a good amount of time. PlayStation 4 was having more connectivity issues than Steam, as I understand it. I was playing on Steam on PC, never really had an issue. There were a couple of times where it said I had a connection issue, but then I would just go right back in to find a game, and it would find me one, no problems. I understand the PlayStation 4 is having a bit more issue with that, to the point where it's frustrating. And I get that, but I would equate that to it being free on PlayStation Plus as opposed to having that price tag. I feel like even more people than they expected to be in day one were there simply because it was free, and Mediatonic being a smaller studio, they just didn't know how to handle it. That will come with time. That'll be alleviated as the games go out. Like I said, it's not as bad on Steam, so if you play PC, you won't really have it as bad as the console. But eventually that'll even itself out. Mediatonic will get the server space. They'll be able to figure it out and get those games connected. Which could be a killer for some people, because if you can't connect, you can't play. And how do you like to play a game you can't play? But those will be hammered out eventually. So in the game, one of the things that you can earn with the kudos or the crowns that we spoke about earlier are costumes. These costumes are super silly, they're super funny, and they have a crazy amount of potential for partnerships in the future. As it is, the Steam version, right out of the gate, has 2 characters from Half-Life available as costumes. One is Gordon Freeman, who you get just for owning the Steam version. And the other is Alex Vance, whose 2 pieces of her costume are available for purchase with the currencies that you earn, kudos or crowns. It's interesting that they go with those 2. It's Steam, so I guess it makes sense. But the ability to then add costumes later on down the line of any characters, those partnership potentials are through the roof. That was a novel, smart idea by Mediatonic to put those in there. And I definitely am excited to collect more than just the Gordon Freeman and Wolf costumes I have now. Looking at the pigeon is funny. The hot dog is funny. I want more of those. I'm very excited for those. And then the music of the game is so funny. It's just upbeat and quirky and fits in perfectly with the game show format that Fall Guys is trying to get to. Definitely a lot of good toe tapping songs as you're waiting for the next match or waiting to connect to a game. but that, I mean, it's not an involved game. It's not a complicated game. It's not one that we really have to sit here for 30 minutes and discuss. It is, you pick up the controller, you enter a game, you run around for a little while and watch all the cute little characters on screen get bashed around. If you qualify for the next round, great. If not, go back in the queue and connect again. Play it and play it and play it and keep going until you're tired. Fall Guys is a ton of fun. It really is a light, funny, warm game that's perfect for anybody. It's one of those games where even people who are watching can get engaged just by how silly and outrageous it is. Mediatonic has an absolute hit on its hands, as evidenced by the fact that it was number one on Twitch on the day it launched. That's a huge indicator right there. Over 550,000 people watching Fall Guys on Twitch, which bodes well for its future. The final score that will be given today by the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast for Fall Guys by Mediatonic, published by Devolver Digital, is a solid 9. It's that fun of a game. It's that silly. It's that smile-inducing that I want to play it at least for a little bit every single night before I play other things or I hunker down with something that I have to do work-wise. It's just silly. It's just it's stupid fun. That's what it is. And I've said it multiple times as I'm playing it. This game is so stupid in the best way. It's just goofy fun. And that's what games should be. They shouldn't be really any more than that. As long as they're fun and engaging, I am all about it. And this one is absolutely fun and engaging. It is available on Steam for $19.99 or for free on PlayStation Plus for the entire month of August, after which it will revert back to the $19.99 price range. If you own a PlayStation 4, there's no reason not to download it and try it. It's free, for God's sakes. What more do you need? If you have a PC only, or if you don't have a PS4, absolutely worth every cent of that $20. 100%, you're going to get a ton of fun out of it, playing through these matches and these obstacle courses, watching all the guys like clatter around and just be silly. It's yes, 100% endorse the price tag of $19.99 for this game on Steam and for PlayStation when September 1st rolls around. But yes, I highly recommend Fall Guys. I recommend it to anybody from the casual player all the way up to the hardcore player. There's something in it for everyone. Simple controls make the barrier of entry low, and then the silliness and the outrageousness of the action on screen just buffers it. And you have yourself a special game coming out at the right time, gaining a ton of momentum, and the sky is the limit for Mediatonic and Fall Guys. I'm very happy with the game. Congratulations to them. 9.0 out of 10 is the official Cheesesteaks and Controllers score for Fall Guys. Play it. Play it if you have a PlayStation 4. Play it if you have Steam. Do it. Make sure you do it. And you don't want to miss out. It's just a special, fun, silly game. It's definitely worth your time. And with that, the grill is shut off. And the podcast is over. This has been episode 8 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast presented by Fox PHL The Gambler. You can find me on Twitter at Big Man Fanelli or the radio station at Fox PHL Gambler. Also go to foxphlgambler.com for blog posts and podcasts of our other shows, including the brand new one, The Line Change with John Jansen, weeknights from 8 to 11, the Daily Ticket with Sean Brace, the program director of the station, is 3 to 6 every day. You hear me every Thursday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Lots of stuff to like if you are a sports fan. But if you're just here for the esports and the video gaming, that's fine too. Thank you as always for your ears and your time. It still boggles my mind that people sit through an hour of me talking to myself most of the time, but I do very much appreciate it. I hope you've learned something. I hope you are interested in learning more about the things that I talked about tonight. I imagine Fall Guys will get some play. Bugsnax will get some play among the other topics. Again, thank you so much for your time and consideration. I look forward to coming at you next week with one of the biggest interviews I have ever done. Episode 9 could be a landmark episode for the series, so long as my appointment holds. So stay tuned for that potential bombshell. With that said, I am signing off for the night. Until next week, see you soon.